Hello guys and gals, welcome back to another episode of Haunted Gaming. This time we do a creepypasta called Never Stop Running, a Super Mario World creepypasta. Now the author wants me to read this creepypasta word for word, but I'm a bit of a rebel, so I'm going to do a mix of both. I'm going to read the letter word for word and the second section of the creepypasta in a summary, so with that said, let's move on and get into this creepypasta. Dear Mom, I know it's not really a norm for people to send handwritten letters anymore since we have email, meeting face-to-face, and the all-powerful cell phone, but I wanted to switch things up, plus I had a few extra postage stamps and I figured you'd be expecting a letter from me sooner or later. So, I have a confession to make. I've been completely honest with you. Over the last couple of months, college has been great, but some very serious things have happened that have forced me to make some very grave choices. Going back to the beginning, I was pretty angry with Kyle when he wouldn't let me take any of our game systems to college. It's not like we don't own every single Nintendo video game system they made. Sans Virtual Boy, of course. I need my eyes to study. If I wanted to blame him, I could, but I don't. Video games were such a huge part of our childhoods that I'm surprised he didn't get more violent when I tried to sneak our SNES out with me. In hindsight, that was a stupid decision anyways. I don't have a TV to play it on, nor do I have the money to buy more games for it. What am I going to do, accept a copy of the game I'm looking for from some random old guy on the street for free? I'm way too familiar with some of the stories floating out there on the internet. P.S. Never look into these stories unless you want to be truly disturbed. So being a typical money-deprived college student with no television, I went online and downloaded ZSNES. If you're unfamiliar with ZSNES, it's an emulator that allows you to play video games on your computer. Download it from the internet, as though you were playing on a console. Pretty convenient for me. Anyways, the game I loved more than any other, as I'm sure you're well aware of how much I used to play it, was Super Mario World. The reason I tried to sneak the SNES out at all, being unfamiliar with ROMs, I asked one of my roommates, experienced with emulators, where I could find a decent ROM of Super Mario World, and he guided me to ROM Hustler. When I finally downloaded, unzipped, and copied the ROM to a permanent folder, I was pleasantly surprised to discover that the ROM came with a bunch of hacks, a la carte. I was under the impression that you had to search these hacks out. For a while, I tested out the first world of each hack, trying to determine which hacks are worth keeping and which hacks I should just delete. Some of the hacks only changed the first world, and the rest of the game either didn't exist or was a carbon copy of the original. This went on normally for about a month, and then I found myself at one very strange hack, simply called Run. Creeped out, I deleted it immediately. I had recently heard the story about Sonic.exe, and I couldn't get the Kefka sound effect out of my head. I was not taking any chances. Like I said before, forget I even mentioned these stories. Needing to clear my head, I left for the rec complex for an hour or two. When I came back, I went to the folder of hacks, only to discover that Run had somehow been restored. Confused, I went to check the recycle bin, only to find out that Run was still there. So it somehow got copied back to the original folder. This should have sent up red flags. Deciding that I might as well see what it was like, but only the first level, I promised myself, I started ZSNES up and loaded the hack. Shockingly, the first world was entirely normal, as in the hack creator didn't change anything. Okay, I thought to myself, this might be a normal game. Level after level turned out to be exactly the same as the original game. Being the completionist that I am, I had to get every single exit in the game. Oddly, I was able to get to Soda Lake before the last stage in Special World, something that I've never been able to do before, so heading to that final stage, I was prepared for it to be similar to the original like the rest of the game. Wishful thinking on my part. As I started the level, Mario's Start popped into the blank screen, and the first thing I noticed was a lack of music. The game was completely silent except for the jumping sound effect, and the only thing to appear on the screen besides Mario was a message block. No bushes, clouds, or coins, not even a timer. The game wouldn't let me progress to the right, so naturally the only thing left to do was hit the message block. The box came up to the screen and sent chills down my spine as I read it. If you stop, you die. Finally, the game would let me continue, but as soon as the message block was off the screen, the level turned into a scroller, where you either keep moving right, avoiding everything in your path, or you get crushed between the left side of the screen and whatever's preventing you from progressing. Annoyed since scroller levels are my least favorite of any type of level in Mario games, yes, even underwater levels. I resolved to keep going until I beat the level, and by extension the game. For the first 5 minutes or so, nothing appeared in front of me. I was just running on flat grounds. I figured that this was a push right to win level, but after about 10 minutes, I began to get annoyed. Did this level ever end? It was at the exact moment that the scroll speed got faster. It took me by surprise after 10 minutes of absolutely zilch happening. The game got progressively faster and faster to the point that even running full speed, I was only barely ahead of the left side of the screen. Finally, the end gate appeared, and after I broke the gate, two things ran through my mind in rapid succession. The first thought was that I finally beat the track, but then I realized that the stage didn't stop scrolling. Sure, Mario kept running at that speed I had him running at, but the end of the level should have signaled the level to stop scrolling. Or at the very least slow down. Then I remembered in horror that at the end of every level, Mario stopped, turned to the player, and flashed a peace sign before going to the next level. Praying to God that Mario wouldn't stop like he normally did, my fears were confirmed. As he stopped, a wall appeared right in front of him, and I watched in horror as he was crushed between the wall that had just appeared in front of him. And to the left side of the screen there was something comical, and yet so very disturbing about watching Mario trying to walk through the wall as if it weren't even there. That I was completely unprepared for, the sound of Mario's bones being ground against the wall. There wasn't a normal Mario death where he makes this wasn't a normal Mario death, where he makes this funny face and just falls off the screen. It was so gruesome and it unnerved me that my hand started to shake. The time up screen appeared, only instead of time up it said, "You stopped running." I closed out the game, wondering what the hell just happened. Because music typically calms me down, I opened iTunes, hoping some music would help me relax. When my library loaded, all the files had been renamed. You stopped running. Double-clicking any of the 2,000 songs produced the same horrific noise that I'd heard upon Mario's death in the game. In fact, every single file on my computer had been renamed to You Stopped Running, and none of them worked like they should. My emotions went from fear to anger. So I assumed that the hack had planted a virus on my computer. If it was just a virus, that could have been the end of it. Side note, the only reason I didn't really tell you about the corruption of my hard drives is because I didn't want you to worry about how much a new computer was going to cost. After about a week had passed without incident, my mind eventually moved on from this corrupted hack. For a time being. Inevitably, though, my mind went back to this hack. Late one Saturday night, I was sitting on my desk working on homework and eyeing my computer suspiciously. I had antivirus software. Why didn't it stop this virus? Suddenly, I heard something hit the window as a car drove by. Assuming it was just a rock thrown by the tire of the car, I pulled up the blinds to survey the damage. What I found, I can't explain. The window was cracked in such a way that it spelled out "run," but not in English. These letters were in Cyrillic, which cemented in my mind the thought that this was a personal message for me, since I've been studying Russian for the last year. Usually, I don't believe in coincidences, but I tried to write this off as one. There was no way that this could be related to something that happened on my computer. At least, that's what I kept telling myself. I needed to get my mind off and do something else. A floor above me lives one of my housemates who happens to own a dog, a beautiful 4-month-old Australian Shepherd puppy. Figuring she was asleep, I peeked into the room, and sure enough, she was. Flipping on the light and opening the door to her kennel, she got up reluctantly and walked over to me, still eager to be a pet at 5:30 in the morning and wiggling her butt, since Australian Shepherds don't have tails. I pet her, threw the tennis ball around to her, fed her and watered her. And then I started feeling drowsy. Putting her back in the cage and flipping off the lights, I had no sooner shut the door and started down the stairs, when I heard an unearthly sound coming from the room. I hesitated, not sure whether or not I wanted to check the room. Eventually, my mind forced me back up to the room. When I turned on the lights, the dog was on its side in the kennel, eyes wide open, staring blankly into the distance. She wasn't moving. Racing over to her, tears flooded down my face, and I tried in vain to find a pulse. I had read somewhere that you can perform CPR on a pet much in the same way you can on a person, so I tried. I tried so hard to save the dog, but it was useless. When I lay her on her back, I saw that same pattern from the window, as coloration in her fur, something I know with 100% certainty wasn't there before. Furiously, I kicked the sofa as hard as I could, and had to grit my teeth to keep myself from screaming. Waking up 32 other guys at 5:30 in the morning would not have gone over well, and there was nothing they could do for the dog. In a state of hysteria, I went back down to my room, put my head on my desk, and cried for a good hour or two. After that, I only went up to the second floor when absolutely necessary. I can only assume that the owner, who happens to be a vet student, couldn't find a cause of death, since I apparently killed her. I had to try my hardest to not lose it every time he talked to me. I even threw up a couple of times. I couldn't eat half the time, and when I did, most of the time, it wouldn't stay down. These images in real life, real death, were burned into my mind. And I just wanted them out. So yeah, now you know how I lost 12 pounds this past month. My health was deteriorating quickly, and then, If you can imagine it, it actually got worse, because I started imagining what I'd done to the dog happening to a person. It didn't matter if it was a complete stranger or my best friend. The thought of being the death of anyone terrified me immensely. It was only a matter of time. I couldn't let it happen, and then something suddenly clicked. The word run wasn't haunting me because I failed on the level of the hack. It was haunting me because I hurt people. I was trying desperately to escape from the fact, but I never could. Or could I? Anyways, if this letter gets to you before then, I promise to make sure you get an open casket. I won't swallow a gun or anything like that, most likely. It'll be the pills I was prescribed for that infection I had in my foot. If this letter gets to you afterwards, I'm sorry. I'm sorry that I didn't tell you sooner. I'm sorry that my death seemed senseless at the time. The last thing I would want you to think was that I committed suicide for selfish reasons. Maybe I did. Maybe I did it for someone else's sake, or just to ease the guilt that I might feel if I did hurt someone close to me. Either way, perhaps the fact that I tried to be noble in my death can ease your pain. If ever so slightly, I can only hope. Bro, you will face a lot of adversity in your lifetime. Don't run from it. Stand up, face it, power through it. You will come out of it a better man. I'm sorry that I didn't get to spend more time with you, but you two gave me the best 20 years of my life. I love you always. Son, brother, Jesse. After 3 days had passed since the letter was first read by Kyle and his mother, they finally held the funeral. Quite a lot of people had showed up to Jesse's funeral, and in Jesse's casket there was a little storage compartment. Kyle had put an SNES game in there and left it to his late brother. A week had passed and Jesse's mother headed up to his college to get his belongings. She went alone, wondering how to keep her composure when she reached the residence. She wouldn't let Kyle come because of school. Once reaching the house, she saw someone leaving with a small Australian Shepherd puppy. She went through her day as if she were on autopilot, figuring out what was even going on, questioning about the dog upon reaching the residence, wondering why it was alive. She was just so confused that instead of coming to a closure upon visiting the residence, she only had more questions. Once Kyle reached home from school, she asked Kyle if he found this hack Jesse talked about, and Kyle said he did, although he was confused because despite it being the same zip file Jesse had downloaded, there wasn't the run hack included with it. And this is where this ends. There were no more developments and no one really knows what happened to Jesse in his last few months, but the mother claims that may be for the best, and all she can say is that she's never been proud of her son more than she is now. Okay, well, that was pretty refreshing. Jumping right into this, let's talk about the good first. I like how it connects to the real world, and in a sense feels realistic, unexplained phenomena such as the window shattering and just conveniently showing Run and Cyrillic and the dog with the same pattern in the fur. Just put that a little aside, and it connected well to the reality. And that was most likely due to this letter. The letter was well written and essentially served as the main bulk of the creepypasta, which offered a lot of detail, and it felt natural as to the player's reaction. And links to the other creepypastas were nice, and cumulatively it gave it an extra dimension even though it did have the unexplainable phenomena. Something about the letter I might change would be a little more understandable explanation of what a hack may be. It feels like it really isn't explained authentically, but that's a minor gripe. The game itself is nothing too special, some parts I'm Scared, some parts Mario, and some parts Sonic.exe. It really didn't have too much besides the crushing of Mario when he stopped running, maybe meaning that you can never really run away from your problems. Tell me what you think in the comments below. It was creepy how the game or entity would affect the player after the game. The window and the dog, although somewhat often unexplainable, were still pretty eerie. In the end, the player committing suicide was pretty grim, and losing grip of sanity and deciding to end it all. Hell, maybe even Jesse wasn't insane. Who knows? As far as the mother at the end, it was okay, really just a funeral scene to end this grim tale. The mother, completely out of touch, going through motions, bewildered at the loss of her child, and Kyle, who was unable to find this hack. It was a nice way to end this, and it was pretty ambiguous, leading readers to assume that what may have happened, like what could have happened. The author states that there will be a sequel to this, so its ambiguity is there for a reason. In the end, what would you rate this creepypasta and what would you change to make it better? Do you think it really happened? What do you think happened? This has been another episode of Haunted Gaming, and if you like what you saw, then like, comment, and subscribe. This is me, Mutahar, and I'm out.